Hi everyone, Professor Hosmer here. Just a little quick short video. Hit a couple of good questions about detecting whether or not a file exists, whether it's readable, that kind of thing. Remember, you can always go to the Python shell within Wing IDE to experiment. It's a great way to basically learn how to interact with different libraries, data types, etc., as we've talked about before. So I'm just going to go ahead and import the OS module, which basically allows me to do things with the file system to check things out. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to determine if a particular directory exists. I can say os.path.isdir, so this is directory. I can say // well, // works both ways within Python. And it comes back and tells me it's true. Okay, that's really cool. So now, what if I want to determine if there's a particular file? I happen to know that I could also say os.listdir, parentheses, // and list all the file names that are in that root directory. One of those file names is SDR, I think it's del.sdr, yeah, del.sdr, which I happen to know is a file. So if I want to basically see if that file exists, I can say os.path.isFile, and I can say, quote, // del.sdr. So that's going to tell me whether or not that particular file is a file. So if I said os.path.isFile and I said, quote, // it comes back false because we know // or // is a directory. So it's kind of giving us that indication. So if I want to open that del.sdr file, I could say something like with open, using the built-in function open. I'm going to open // del.sdr. I'm going to say we'll call it infile. I can say now text equals, I want to read some of the content of that file. Let's say infile.read. We'll read the first, 40 bytes of that file. Now again, indenting again, make sure I'm under the width. I can say print text, and now I can print out the first 40 characters of that particular file. So that kind of verified that it's there. Now, what if I couldn't open that file? A couple different ways to do it. Now, one of the questions is, do I have access to that file? I didn't show you that, but I could say os.access, parentheses, // del.sdr, comma, os.rd, read OK. So can I access that file? In other words, can I open it and read the contents of that particular file? It appears that I can because it came back as true. However, that isn't necessarily the case, because this could be a file that is locked by the operating system that would prevent me from accessing it. So I want to be able to make sure that I can do that. So that's why I would always use a try except when I'm actually trying to open a file, even if the file we know it is a file, and we know that we have access to the file. In other words, we have privilege or rights to access that particular file. But can we actually open it? So what I would do in that particular case is I would say try, and I have to indent, say with open let's say SDR1, which we know doesn't exist, but this would be the same case if it was a file that was locked, just kind of simulating the situation as infile. Okay. So I'm going to basically say print file opened, if everything went okay. If it doesn't go okay, I can say except as accept exception as error in order to be able to print out the error that might have occurred. So now I can say print error. So in this particular case, it came back with an error. So when we ended up in the exception case, because it printed out the fact that no such file or directory del.str1. So there's multiple ways to handle the situation of whether or not a file exists. If it is a file, there's multiple levels that you could actually go to testing. But in some cases, the easiest method might be just to try to open it. And if it doesn't open, then you can print out an error, or you could return an error value from within your function or within your class. So there's multiple ways to handle this. There's multiple theories about how to do this. I tend to take the approach where I check to see if the file exists. I check to make sure I have access to the file. And then I'll still put a try except around the ability to open, because after I open it, I'm going to read it, and maybe the read will fail for some reason. So I'm always still cautious about surrounding any I/O operations with a try except. So again, that should give you some indication of how to handle some of these issues about handling I/O and files that will help you out in the future.